Thanks, Candace. I'm joined here with Mary Eliza Hendricks, the dramaturg for the show opening this Thursday, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime.
Yes.
Got that right?
Yes.
So what I understand about the dramaturgical role, in my limited knowledge, is that pretty much if anyone has a question about the world of the play, the context, the setting, the playwright's intent, you offer the answer, or you find out the answer.
Yes.
Okay, feel free to elaborate.
Well, it's often been joked that the dramaturg is a professional Googler. My job as dramaturg, before the show starts, I compile information, and I read through the play multiple times, and I compile information about the backstory of the setting, of the time period the play was written, why the play was written by the playwright, in order to give the actors a better context for building character and the director a better context for building the show. And then throughout the process, I'm available for questions, like you said, about the world of the play, and then later on in the process, I help to make sure that the director's intent gets across to the audience. Now, Curious Incident, I did a little bit more because of the themes, and things we were dealing with character-wise in the show.
Going off of character-wise and talking about building character, I know one of the main reasons the story of Curious Incident is told is because the protagonist, Christopher, I believe, the name of the character, is neuroatypical. Somewhere on the spectrum of a neuroatypical diversity?
Of autism.
Correct. Of autism, gotcha.
So neuroatypical is a term used for someone who has whose brain works differently from neurotypical.
Fair, yeah.
And that is a wide range that includes autism, it includes Downs, it even includes things like ADHD, ADD, depression, stuff like that. It's a very big umbrella term. Now, Christopher, our protagonist, it is never stated in the show his diagnosis. It's only ever stated that he has, and this is by him, behavioral issues. And Mark Haddon, the original author, because the play is based on a book, the original author of the book did that on purpose because everyone has behavioral issues sometimes. But the symptoms that Christopher shows throughout the show through his mannerisms and also what he does, he most likely falls on the autism spectrum. And so that's what we went off of for building the character of Christopher.
Gotcha. So it's sort of a little bit of detective work, it seems like you're doing with the script. You know, it's never specifically stated.
Well, and at this point, the show, the way it's been, it was a best-selling book in London, in England, before it became a musical. Not musical.
Well, they typically become musicals.
I was just thinking it was on the West End, which has a lot of musicals. No, it became before it became a show. And so, the fact that Christopher is autistic is pretty much accepted by the community of people who do the show at this point.
So what has it been for working with a neurotypical actress or actor who's playing the character? Non-binary performer. I believe it's a problem. Okay, yes.
I think actor is pretty
gender neutral.
Gender neutral at this point.
Actor, what has been your role in helping form that character and make sure it's respectful representation of someone who is neuroatypical?
So that was really important to me, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to work on this show. Because the portrayal of Christopher, we have to be very careful because there's a tendency to maybe play him like Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory. That's kind of our current stereotypical Asperger's.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is Christopher used to be classified as Asperger's, but the diagnosis has changed and Asperger's now falls under the autism spectrum diagnosis. So my role, I did a lot of research on how what autism is, what it means neurologically, like what in the brain makes someone autistic, and also what do autistic people deal with that's different from neurotypical people, both good and bad. Because there are some things that autistic people can do much better than neurotypical people can.
I know in the show, mathematics is one of those things brought up.
And there's also a famous woman, Temple Grandin. Yes, and she revolutionized the cattle farming industry. And she was autistic, and it was because her brain worked beautifully for building new cattle herding mechanisms and such.
Maybe there'll be a play coming about her in the future.
But so I sat down with Christopher, and we had a long workshop one day where I just word vomited lots of information at them, and we talked through some of the issues and the things that go into what autism is.
Totally. And one thing I wanted to ask about involving the dramaturgical role in the theater department.
Yes.
First off, if you could briefly talk about maybe any educational opportunities you've had because of our theater department that you feel has benefited you in your pursuit of dramaturgy? Because I know that's not something a lot of people typically pursue in theater.
So I didn't know dramaturgy was a word. Most people don't.
Fair.
Until I was witch number 2 in Macbeth. And I fell in love with trying to figure out how to justify the witches and going into the text and doing research and all this stuff. And our guest director at the time, Carrie Smith Lewis, recommended to me to look into dramaturgy.
Yeah.
The next fall, I dramaturged Government Inspector, which I don't know if you saw.
It's my freshman year. I did see it. Yeah.
And so I dramaturged that show.
Wow.
And then I have worked with professors to build that. Last semester, I did a mentorship at the Barter with Nick Piper to work on dramaturgical skills.
Totally. That's really awesome.
And I got that through the school.
Very cool. And sort of addressing the elephant in the room regarding the theater department, especially after last week and some of the budgetary adjustments, budget cuts that have hit a lot of the arts and humanities and greatly affected the theater department. I believe getting rid of a whole line, if I'm not mistaken, the BFA acting.
Yes. So we have a musical theater professor, a professor of musical theater, a professor of dance, a professor of design and production, a professor of directing, and then a professor of acting. And the position of professor of acting will no longer exist.
Yeah, that's what I understood.
If these budget cuts continue as they currently are slated to.
Are you worried at all, because dramaturgy, of course, not being one of the most popular facets of it's not musical theater by any means. Are you worried at all about your pursuit of it here at Emory and Henry being stifled by budget cuts, or future pursuits of it?
I am worried.
If you feel comfortable commenting on that, of course.
So, dramaturgy is closer to the directing field, and so my personal education has moved into the direction of with the directing professor. However, the acting professor here, Professor Rachel Swartz, has gotten me jobs before and has gotten multiple of us jobs. And so that is a large concern because she has so many connections with the theater world. I'm also concerned the acting classes won't necessarily affect me directly. However, I won't be able to take acting 3 or 4 with Professor Swartz because next year is my senior year.
When those will be offered.
Right, and they won't be able to be offered when they're trying to figure things out. At least I'm aware, as far as I know.
At least not with,
as far as I know,
the current attention to them.
And so I'm worried about the upcoming freshmen and the upcoming classes because apparently they're also taking away students here can no longer get a BFA in acting.
Wow.
And how do you have a theater department without acting?
It's an excellent question. On a much lighter note, I'm very excited for the opening of Curious Incident.
I am too.
And see all the work you've put in, as well as everyone on the production team,
they're
culminated.
Doing a wonderful job. I'm sitting in tech every night just amazed and enjoying it. It's so
I'm sure.
So enjoyable. Oh, one more thing. Can I talk about the production concept?
Sure, briefly, if you wouldn't mind.
Briefly.
Yeah, excellent.
So
I'd love to hear that.
The production concept, the show isn't traditional. You're not sitting watching a proscenium, a storyline. You are experiencing the show through Christopher's eyes, in Christopher's brain.
Oh, that's cool.
So you're seeing his coming of age story happen as his brain would experience it, at least to the best of our abilities.
And I'm sure there's a lot of unique things that are going to be revolved around that. I know the set and the lighting.
It's also going to be very loud, so if you have sensory issues, it's going to be loud as a warning.
Fair PSA. Well, thank you for meeting with me, Mary Eliza.
Thank you.
I'm glad to hear you're so excited about dramaturgy.
I am.
And now we're going to toss it over to Luke with the sports update.